actually going in with that lens of, okay, well, what can we do next? And from a HR perspective, like when we started with Threat Essentials, which was the cyber threat intelligence thing that me and a MBA friend did, a big part of that, and he was passionate about it as well, like was looking into new ways of doing things, right? And we were obsessed with the HR book by Netflix.
Welcome to the Fractional Edge Podcast, the ultimate podcast where we unlock the power of workforce planning and discuss the rapidly growing fractional executive staffing strategies to supercharge your business.
Meet your hosts, Carol Fraser, a workforce planning expert, fractional chief human resources officer, and founder of C4 Talent.
And Jason Hewitt, the sensei of marketing, fractional chief marketing officer, and founder of Fifth Degree Marketing.
We'll bring you insights from seasoned pros, inspiring success stories, and actionable strategies to optimize your valued workforce.
Don't miss this chance to upgrade your business with top industry leaders in today's competitive landscape. So tune in and learn how to unleash your competitive edge.
One question I have for you, it's a bit more specific, is, how do you go about aligning those two teams when you have maybe one team has a KPI of MQLs, another team's got a KPI of sales meetings? I mean, do those, I guess what's your advice to the audience to align all of these goals so that we're all moving in the same direction? I love the example you use of vectors, because I probably got a bad grade in math because of that concept. I was off just by 1%. Talk to us a little bit about that. How do you align those teams when the KPIs are different?
I'm going to use Funnel again because there was so much to learn there, and it's a big company that's done really, really well. When we were there, we realized that actually when we identified that, you bring a CRO in when all the divisions are kind of off and you need someone to kind of bring it together, then the layer down is, what are the management doing? Okay, then layer down, what are the heads of doing? What are the management doing? Then what are the reps are doing? And we realized that actually, and a concept that I grabbed from Pavilion was the Revnu Council. Okay, well, if we're all going to row together, we need to be meeting and getting the right metrics, because one team, the marketing team will have certain metrics, the sales team will have other, the SDR, some others, and we're kind of coming together and saying, well, we're doing really, really well because our MQL is converting at the rate that it should be. And we're now pumping more volume through. So you should really be converting that. And then sales teams having their own kind of like, well, SDR team saying, well, we're getting these MQLs and we're moving to SQOs in the percentage that we should be. Actually, it's the sales team's problem that it's not kind of working. So we realized quite quickly and there was a change in pricing that was a massive dip. Like all of a sudden, like the revenue for the month was like, whoa, what happened there? Okay, we all need to sit together and we all need to focus on the bottom line. We need to focus on revenue. So when I was at Funnel, I was actually the head of VP of sales development reps. So within that, I renamed it to revenue development reps, and they still have the name now. And I need to write something about that at some point, but I keep forgetting. But actually, trying to get that function to really focus on, it's not the marketing kind of KPIs. We need to start looking at the revenue KPIs as a group, and then we can then go within our own functions and then build the KPIs out that are relevant for us, but then still align to that bottom line of what we need to be doing as a business, making sure that we hit that revenue number that we've committed to the board or the investors or whoever.
I love it. Yeah. I mean, I could sit here and talk intersection of marketing and sales with you all day long. Carol.
I'll jump in. The one thing I'm hearing, Cameron, is your ability to really kind of go into an organization untraditionally, right? With a kind of a new lens on how the whole organization could be operating, call it from the top line down. And it's interesting that when you think about just the conversation you had around the intersection between marketing and sales, and your changing of even a title to a revenue development representative, it really just kind of lends into the HR side of it, which is this guy really understands that it takes people to achieve these goals, and how we create an environment, how we communicate, how we organize that's that whole workforce planning thing is really what is going to drive that company's success. So hearing it from a chief revenue officer's perspective is a whole new way of kind of hearing it for our audience. I think CEOs tend to hire sales, revenue, however they want to lump them, because they want money in the door. But what I'm hearing from you is there is really both small and big strategic things that organizations need to consider to achieve those goals. So I like to summarize so that our listeners can kind of see, yeah, that's what it is. I didn't see that. So I just kind of wanted to put that out there, because when I think about how we can best serve these small to medium-sized businesses, like you said, going from 10 million to 20 million, it is going to require a completely different lens to focus through, because it's a very different landscape at that point.
Yeah, totally agree with that. And I was at an event a little while back talking to someone who's now a bit of a partner in what I'm doing. And him and other people kind of pick up on this, like when you say CRO and you switch on the screen, you look at me and be like, he's a bit young. Why is not CRO? What's he doing? He doesn't have 30 years experience. But actually it's like, it was like the surfer CRO, long haired, younger looking, used to be younger looking before, married and kids. Actually going in with that lens of, okay, well, what can we do next? Right. And from a HR perspective, like, when we started with Threat Essentials, which was the cyber threat intelligence thing that me and a MBA friend did, a big part of that, and he was passionate about it as well, like, was looking into new ways of doing things, right? And we were obsessed with the HR book by Netflix, on the bus, off the bus, having the right people in the business, maybe not to the extreme of kind of like choose your salary, because we were probably too small to do that. But I think like coming in, bringing a bit of a fresh perspective to some businesses that can have got to a point where they're either become a little bit stale in what they're doing and they need new ways of thinking, and they need someone to come in and kind of unearth things and give them you could have your team as a traditional sales model, or you could think about putting the assembly line, or you could start doing pods, or, start throwing like different things at the people that give them different options, and new concepts that to you think is like an obvious thing to do. Like I feel like we all need to innovate all the time, and our business models and the way we work. I think that the workforce and actually the way in which we work needs to change. So I think when I go into companies and I have that perspective and that thought and that experience with companies that are young and have grown quite quickly, that's where that value comes in, rather than someone who has a few more grey hairs than I do, coming in at a CRO level that has a wealth of skills in certain areas, but probably better suited for companies that are slightly bigger and there's a lot more complexity and more kind of I can never say the word, hierarchical kind of setup, where it's a lot harder to bring in really new ideas and drive change at the speed that I like to.
I see fractional executives as kind of the B12 shot. It's like, if you have stalled, if you are putting efforts out there that are not getting the expectations or the return that you had hoped, even if you bring in a fractional executive for an hour a week, 2 hours a week, whatever, through an advisory level versus strategy, it's always the opportunity to see it through a different lens. And I think that that's where, given that you're driving and your role is helping to drive that top line, you're like the biggest B12 shot, right? You're the one who can lean into, what is going on in your marketing. And while you may not be the CMO, you have people who go, this is why. And I think just overall, whenever you want to start to think differently or think out of the box or see why your competitors are getting somewhere or why call it your social media feed, or is you're seeing all your competitors in your social media feed. Like those are the moments where you tap a fractional executive on the shoulder and say, I'd like to bring you on board for the next 3, 6, 12 months. And whether we start out at an hour a week or 20 hours a week, or it goes up and down, I need somebody to give me a different way of looking at this, because I have my job to do. I have my business to run, and I can't do it all the time. So I love how you kind of, I think it's about the skill and competency. Yes, the tenure, the long in the tooth definitely helps because you've probably just seen a lot in life. But I think also the market's changed. Your buyers have changed. And if you aren't keeping somebody next to you who's closer to maybe where the market is going because of a generation, I think they're going to lose out.
Yeah. And I think like the beauty of doing fractional work is that you get to see so many different environments that actually, I mean, you could go in and say, I've gone into the company, it's a mess, blah, blah, blah. We need to help them with X, Y, and Z. But actually you go and you're like, oh, they're actually doing something really good there. Oh, this, like now we said funnel, your phones and your social feed will have them on you for the next month. They're amazing at that, right? Their system is nuts. And you're going to companies that are doing something traditional, but actually they're doing this for this reason. Like there's a client that there's a bunch of fractionals in, and actually you're seeing that you can help in a certain area, but then someone else needs some help, and like very, very quickly you see that the reason why this company has a bunch of different fractionals is because they've identified that they've got really, really great people in the business, but their ceiling is here. The business needs here. So you need to find a way to bridge that gap. You either bring an interim or a fractional. And I always believe that any fractional, as much as, maybe painful for people, is to help those people, help bridge that gap, not for a long period of time. Actually, what I do is I want to go in, I want to make sure that when I go in, I want to make sure that I can help bridge that gap, but then elevate people so that gap kind of decreases. And actually, a lot of founders are kind of the reason why the business aren't progressing, because they kind of they miss that little gap, or it's just not something. Yeah, it's just something they just don't notice at that time.
So Cameron, I'm going to sell here on your behalf. I always think it's easier to sell on others' behalf than it is your own sometimes. What I'm seeing, and I know that both you and Carol has seen this a lot, is that sometimes that traditional pull between sales and marketing. And I think this is a really important point for if there's CEOs or founders listening to this, especially in the startup early phase, is watch for those signs of the tug of war happening. Because one is it's definitely a short-term pain, but also it's indicative of a larger problem, probably in the structure of the workforce planning, the recruitment, and all that. And I'm just talking from a perspective of I've seen some great organizations really struggle with that. So if you are listening to this and that resonates with you, get in touch with Cameron, because he can tell he's got a very positive approach to kind of gelling those two systems together, and it's critical.
So Cameron, I want to I want to know, what is the one question that you wish we would have asked?
When you said that, I was like, I should have probably thought about this beforehand, but throwing it in there, and it's probably because the way that I am at the moment. No, I've got two. Let me decide which one. Okay, I wanted to go along like the purpose thing, because I think it's really important. What is your purpose? I think that's a really, really important question, but people can do different tests around that and kind of figure that out. But I think that is where everyone should look. But something that I've actually just kind of come up with and actually resonates with a lot of the things that I'm doing with all what I'm doing at the moment is like, maybe you asking me, what does the future of work look like? Because I'm very, very passionate about what that answer I believe is, and have been for quite a few years. So that would have been the question that I would have. All right.
So what does the future of work look like?
So what we're doing, I think this is what it is. I think it's people finding things that they're really, really good at, and then helping people and different companies to suit their lifestyle. I think working in one business forever and having to stay there forever is kind of, that's the old ways of working. I think we're slowly transitioning, and especially in the UK, like slowly understanding that a fractional person can actually add value, and actually someone being in less than 5 days a week can be more valuable than being in 3 days versus 5. There's actually more value there. I see a world where no one has one job. We all have portfolio careers. And this may be a bit of a taboo kind of thing, and people might think I'm a bit crazy, but you're seeing it already, right? There's university students who are coming out and they've got 5 different things. They're trading crypto. They have a creator account in whatever platform they're creating content on. They're doing a day job. They've got several things that they are doing. And I think the fractional movement is just that one of those steps that is supporting the future of work, which I feel like is leaning more towards the gig economy. I know pre-COVID, I think the US, 45% of the workforce was, or 45 or 55, it was kind of just on that teeter point, was within the gig economy. I feel like even these more senior roles and roles within traditional businesses are going to become a lot less structured, in the sense of you do 5 days for, 3, for the year, and you'll stay here for 10 years sort of thing. It's like you come and deliver your value at the level that you like to. And if you want to improve, that's your kind of prerogative to improve yourself and then find the place and where you can add value. I think it's going to move from having a salaried role to value exchange.
And I'll parlay off of the other question around the purpose. I think for those people who find their long-term home, it's generally because their personal purpose, their personal drive is very closely aligned to what that company is doing. Mm-hmm. And it could be, for a number of reasons. It could be altruistic. It could be location. It could be generational. So some of that is why they stay so long in one organization, but generationally, the way that even COVID has caused the migration of workers to go where they want to live and not necessarily live where the work is really lending to this, let me work for a couple of days. Let me do it hybrid, remote. Let me give you the value of what's in here. If I'm not in an industry that requires these, but it requires this, why do you need to touch me physically, right? You should just be able to take full advantage of the noggin. So I hear what you're saying. So it kind of goes with both of those questions, a little bit of the purpose and a little bit of what the future of work looks like. Yeah.
And I'm on my own journey. So that for me, that's what I see in my head at the moment. I'm following that and just excited to see where the world ends up in 5-10 years time.
Cameron, people want to find you online. What's the best way?
Cameron at rev-nu.com is my email, and then www.rev-nu.com, because full revenue is also taken. So
sounds good. Awesome.
So I want to thank everybody for listening to today's podcast. Cameron, thank you for letting us capture you from across the pond and for sharing what I have to say has just been really an enlightening conversation. And really, I think our listeners are going to have a different kind of lens or a different kind of view on what sales and revenue and marketing really could be in their organizations as they're growing it. So I hope everybody subscribes to our podcast and reaches out to our guest if they have any questions. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you for tuning in to the Fractional Edge. We hope you enjoyed our insightful discussions and feel inspired to unleash your competitive edge.
Remember to like, share, and subscribe to stay updated with the latest episodes. You can also connect with our podcast guests to benefit from their expertise and explore collaboration opportunities by visiting our website, thefractionaledge.com. Join us next time as we continue to explore the power of workforce planning and fractional executives in today's competitive business landscape. Until then, take care and keep growing.